Hi everyone, this is Kevin Watson here with another video from Cheltenham and Gloucester Unitarians. This week we had our membership service and our AGM, and it got me thinking about belonging and joining and being a member and how I feel about all that. And I realised that in many ways I don't consider myself much of a joiner of things, you know? I mean, I joined Desperate Dan's Pie Eaters Club when I was a kid, but really for that you just had to wear a badge and read comics. So that was all right, really. I was never in any sports teams or anything like that. I did join the Sons of the Desert in my teens, which is a Laurel and Hardy Appreciation Society. And I did that for a couple of years, but then maybe I thought, well, maybe organised slapstickery isn't for me, you know? Maybe I like comedy but don't want to be in a community all the time and commit to that. I did in my teens, of course, also join the Methodist Church when I was about 15 or 16, though it hadn't really occurred to me before then that I hadn't been a member. But apparently I wasn't a member until I said that I was a member. And that was interesting. I can remember going to the annual covenant service that they have in Methodism, and I think they may have updated the language, but at the time you had to make promises, and the words included things like, rank me with whom you will, put me to doing, put me to suffering. So we would say that in a service, and then there would be the sermon, and you realised that the suffering was going to start earlier than you hoped. So there was that. I suppose where I'm getting to is we're not always keen to get involved in communities because they can disappoint us. They can be weird. Lots of people, I think, have had this experience of when they've been in a church service, and they sometimes do this thing called passing the peace. And the idea is very simple ritual. You put your hand out and you pass the peace to someone standing next to you. So you be there in the church and you hold out your hand and you think the person next to you is going to hold out their hand and shake it and wish you peace. But no, they come right past you. They go the whole length of the church to find someone else that they would rather pass the peace with. You're standing there with your hand out. People are going straight past you. You're wondering, do I look like I'm checking for leaks in the roof? What's going on here? So I've seen that, and that can be a bit weird. And I can remember another example of weirdness being in a local preachers meeting once, and having some strange things there. Now, local preachers meetings were interesting to me because you got the whole spectrum of kind of theological perspectives in there. And I suppose that teaches you a certain level of tolerance because we don't all think alike. And as Unitarians would say, we do not need to think alike to love alike. That's true. But I can remember certain things, like, for example, the time when a guy got up and did an opening devotional that I thought was a bit strange, in which he said, you've heard it said that God speaks to you in mysterious ways. Well, God speaks to me through my emails. And I was listening to this and thinking, where's this going? When the Reverend Doug Saville, who was sat next to me, leaned over and he said, personally, I get quite a lot of spam, which I liked. But communities can be weird, they can disappoint us, they can not always be comfortable to be in. And I'm sort of wondering, do we sometimes, in our way of talking about community, idealize it too much? We all want a sense of belonging, but I guess when we're talking about community, it needs to be realistic. Now, in last Sunday's service, we were talking about this a lot, and we had a really lovely reading about which had a whole load of things, which began, I want a community which, I want to be part of a community which. And to me, they were great, but they were also, if you like, ideals. And I think the reality is all of us feel that we belong and we don't belong at the same time. I heard a sermon once, actually, in which someone mentioned how hard it can be to feel at home and connected to people when you're visiting a church for the first time. How hard it is when a preacher is talking about the great web of life and the need to love everyone, and you're sitting there thinking, but I don't know these people. How can I love them? I don't know them. Or maybe you belong to a church for a long time, and the preacher is talking about the great web of life, and the need to love everyone, and you're thinking, well, I know these people a bit too well. And that also can make it difficult. So somehow, whether you're sitting in a church congregation for the first time or the 1000th time, you feel you don't belong. You are, in a sense, an outsider. But here's a peculiar point. Because in a sense, we all belong because we all feel like outsiders. As the Reverend Anne Peart put it, each life contains both centrality and marginality. All of us feel at different times and in different ways a sense of belonging and a sense of aloneness. Maybe collectively that's the story of Unitarianism, but it's also the story of each one of us. And maybe accepting that is the first step. So I think we have to get used to this idea of community as maybe not an ideal thing, a thing that's going to be perfect. Community will sometimes disappoint us. Community will sometimes be weird. So what I want to come back to then is really a postscript to last Sunday's service, when we heard this powerful list of the values of community. And we were asked to pick out one that spoke to us most. It was a good exercise, it was a good service, but in the days that have followed, I've wondered whether we might choose ideals sometimes that are less ideal, but help us feel that sense of belonging, connect, and so on. So with that in mind, here is my own, just for today, my own list of the sorts of community that I might want to be a part of. I want to be part of a community where staying for coffee feels like an attractive proposition. I thought I'd start this with not too challenging, you know. I want to be part of a community that doesn't have all the answers, but is a safe place to ask questions. I want to be part of a community where I can find meaning and connection, even when the world doesn't make sense. I want to be part of a community where my commitment to the cause can waver, and that's okay. Although, I want to be part of a community that helps me become a better me. I want to be part of a community that helps me discover how I and we can make a difference. I want to be part of a community that accepts me on days when I'm feeling grumpy or my jokes aren't funny. I can almost hear the retort to that already. Don't say it, don't say it. And finally, I want to be part of a community that isn't perfect, because neither am I.